We are in the room that is known as the Bagay dining room. This is dedicated to Madame Bagay, who first operated a restaurant here on the corner of Decatur and Madison. It was here that she invented the meal that we know today as brunch when she began serving the butcher's breakfast. And here is her second husband, Hippolyte Bagay. Originally, this restaurant was called Dutre's Coffee Exchange, but when her first husband, Louis, died, she ran the place all on her own for 2 years until she went back across the street to the butcher's market where her brother worked, and Hippolyte was much younger than she, and I think she said to him, "How would you like to be my bartender?" And he followed her back across the street, traded in his butcher's apron for the attire of the barkeep, and so the story begins. Eventually they marry, and that's when Dutre's Coffee Exchange becomes Bagay's Exchange, the famous restaurant. Madame Bagay, the first, dies in 1906, made headlines across the country because she was America's first rock star chef. Hippolyte closes the restaurant for 3 days, and after 3 days, he reopens. And there seems to be a seamless transition because there was a young kitchen assistant whose name was Francois Laforge Laporte Bagay. She ends up as the second Madame Bagay. In fact, here's her marriage license to Hippolyte that we found in an old trunk when I was digging through here. We're gonna go up to the second floor, and I'm gonna tell you what I think the first and the second Madame are doing up there. This is exactly where Madame Bagay's original kitchen was, where both of the Madames worked. And this is the place where often, late at night, there will be the sound of breaking china and breaking glass. And then when they come to have a look at what fell or broke, there's nothing broken. And that's why I think that perhaps the young Madame and the old Madame might be duking it out up here. Now we are in the attic at Tujague's. One of the sous chefs here refuses to come up here anymore. And that's because every time he'd come up here, all the hair in his head would stand up. He'd get sort of a chilly feeling. And then when he would go back down to the kitchen for the rest of the day, he couldn't get any of the electrical equipment to work. So the spirits were fooling with the electricity. Perhaps that's why we had a hard time getting the lights on up here. Here on the wall, we have Julian L. Tinge. He's our cross-dressing ghost here at Tujague's. He has been hanging on the wall in this room since 1917 when he visited once, coming through town with his stage show, because Julian L. Tinge was the most famous celebrity in America in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s. He was a star of stage and screen. He even appeared in a silent movie with Rudolph Valentino called Isle of Love, but he never appeared on stage dressed as a man. He only dressed as a woman. In August of 2013, when Mark Ladder, the owner of Tujague's today, did a little facelift on the old girl, he took Julian off the wall where she had hung there. And in my early days of research, I would ask people, who is that person? And they didn't know his name. Nobody had ever paid attention to that. All they would say is, oh, that's the cross-dresser. Well, then he turned into our cross-dressing ghost, because once his picture was taken down and in the attic, a young couple were here in New Orleans vacationing, an engaged couple, April Ross and Ian Wren. And they took a selfie. That's Julian L. Tinge. And Julian is looking out from that corner. When they got home, they discovered that image in the picture they took right here in this dining room. So Mark sent it to me and he said, "Do you think that's Madame Bagay?" "That's not Madame Bagay. That's the cross-dresser. Where's his photograph?" And Mark said, "Oh, it's up in the attic." And I said, "Well, get it out of the attic and hang it back on the wall because the ghost is angry and he wants to get back in his spot again." So Julian L. Tinge is back in the Bagay room where he will remain.